Morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here today. My name is Natasha Bean, and we are here at Financial Education, understanding your investment here as NYU. So, as I mentioned, I'm Natasha Bean. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the program director here at NYU Financial Education. So, we're going to talk about a couple of things today: understanding your NYU investment, understanding what this means to come to NYU, and how to fund it properly. So, our agenda is going to be really short and sweet, but you're going to be packed with full of information. We're going to talk about why do we need financial education? How do we get started here at NYU? We're going to talk a little bit about financial aid, what the different parts are, and how to get aid and keep aid. We're going to talk about the cost, some things to consider as you are endeavoring, to pay for NYU, what our commitment is, and leave a little room for some questions and answers. So if that sounds great, I'm going to get started. So, why do we need financial education? First of all, I want to explain that we are different from the Office of Financial Aid. So, what we do is we offer students the literacy and the knowledge around the aid that they are offered. So, the aid office gives you the money, as in that they give you the detailed types of things that we're going to go over, but most likely scholarships and loans that you have heard about. So, they're the ones that administer that. We in the financial education office, we talk to parents and students to make sure they understand, hey, what does this mean? What does this loan repayment look like? What do these scholarships mean? And how do I keep them? How do I get more? So we want you to understand your finances as you are here at NYU. And then, of course, once students leave NYU, we want them to be very well versed in understanding lots of financial topics. So we want them to know the difference between the two offices and how we work together. So, why do we need financial education? I mean, we want to underscore that basically every year the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FINRA, I know that's a big mouthful, they issue a 5 question capability test as part of National Financial Capability Study across the United States. They ask folks of many different levels, students as well as those adults in the working world, about their finances. It's a quick and short quiz, but in the last quiz that they administered, which is in the early 2020, 53% of the respondents felt anxious about their finances. And those respondents who had student loans, about 48% of them were concerned about the ability to pay down that particular debt. So the lack of financial education that those folks may have had, as well as basic economic and financial principles that need to be known, underpin these little concerns that folks are having. About half of our population are having financial considerations and concerns. So we want to make sure that before students get here, they understand their financial aid options, applications, and then when they get their award, we want them to understand what each a line item means, how it gets applied, and also what they need to do to keep this information. So that's how we got here, financial education. We were established in about 2018 under the Office of Financial Aid. Basically, in working with financial aid for over 2 decades, we've noticed patterns and trends with our students in their either borrowing habits or even in their just completion. And we want to make sure, like, hey, student success is our priority. We want our people to understand that, hey, we want a student who comes to NYU to successfully navigate NYU and also financially navigate that to the best of their ability. So, financial education helps ensure that our students start here, continue, study abroad if they wish, get all the things that they need to get, and then they attain their degree. We also wanted to be clear that we want to demystify the cost of attendance, that large number that you see, and demystify the different individual terms of financial aid so that way you are aware of what this actually means. We understand knowledge is power, and we strive to empower our students in all aspects to make those different informed decisions about that investment in NYU. It's a team effort. Our goals and our missions are to ensure that we support our students with the resources so that they thrive and grow at NYU. So, what are our services? I have a team of specialists that we do one-on-one counseling with students, not just loan counseling, but we talk about budgets. We talk about, hey, live like a student while you are here. What resources can you take advantage of? We check in with students periodically about their credit score, credit reports, credit cards, how are they utilizing that. We do different events and workshops for our students. We put on a game of life for students. We also come into their classes and help them where they are supposed to be. So as a freshman, you have different financial priorities than maybe a senior about to enter the working market. So we want to make sure that at their levels, they understand their financial things that they need to know. We utilize iGrad, which is a financial education platform. It is free for you. It is free for our students. It's free for our administrators. We want them to, read some articles, look at some videos, start, demystifying these terms that they might be hearing. And then we also have other financial literacy tools, budget sheets, calculators. We do lots of things for our students so that way they are not as maybe, less knowledgeable about their finances. They go out here understanding the different things that they can use to fund their education and all the different terms that they'll be hearing throughout their lifetime. So financial literacy is more than just budgeting. It's more than just, okay, don't overspend and X, Y, and Z. We want the students to feel confident about these decisions. We want them to know, like, oh, okay, if I have to take out this loan, this is what this means. Or, oh, if I'm adding on a different course here or changing my major or double majoring, this is what this means. And we want that to provide them with the tools to effectively manage their finances. So how do we do that? Well, we have a philosophy for our students. We have 6 core principles that we go through as they engage with us throughout their time here. We work with parents as well to help support their students in their journey. We want folks to plan, obviously, to create and implement a strategy for the financial responsibilities that they will have, whether it is the application fees to start, or once they start getting here, the different deposits that they'll have to pay, or when they start, how many years they need to be here, typically 4 years. But we want to have a plan, a financial plan, so that way they are geared up to make these right choices. Then, of course, we want to talk to them about earnings. They're here, they're learning, they might be working, they might be looking for jobs as well, internships and things. We want them to understand their earning power and the financial effects of their current choices on their future earning power. We want to also talk to them, of course, about savings and investing to some degree. So, savings and investing, we want them to grow their personal assets and build savings and development plans, and then also understanding investing. We're not telling them, you know, different things about invest here or do these things. No, but we want them to be aware of like what their potentials are. But also with their money, we want them to be able to protect the money that they have. It's once they earn things, we want them to know, okay, where do I put this? How do I protect my identity? How do I make sure that I'm not getting scammed by doing X, Y, and Z? Also, as a student, they will be spending money. So we want them to spend that wisely. We want them to understand, okay, here are some choices that I have. Here are some books I need to get, things I need to do, personal expenses I need to spend. How do I do this wisely? And if the student has to borrow for maybe short-term loans, or maybe in the future, if they're endeavoring into, okay, I want to, get a car, or I want to get a house eventually. What do I need to know about mortgages, or what do I need to know about my student loan repayment? So we want them to understand these different things as they are here, not all at one time, but as they are here at NYU making their little plans. Okay, I'm at the point where I want to study abroad. What does this cost? Does my aid cover it? How much will I need? What's the currency exchange rate? We want them to be very knowledgeable in all of these decisions that they're doing. Why do we need to do that? Well, at NYU and at other schools, because we were part of a multi-school study on financial wellness, we see a lack of basic financial understanding show up at many levels with our students. Sometimes it's through the balances that they may be carrying each semester. Sometimes it shows up in the study that we have. 25% of the students who completed the study consider dropping out of school due to their financial concerns, which is not successful for us as far as like them finishing their degree. 33% of the students, when we asked them to study, were unlikely to have $400 in case of emergency. An emergency is defined as like maybe they have to fly home for some reason, or maybe they have to get a new computer or something along those lines. Just having a basic amount of money for emergency, about a third of them were not able to, come up with that, or know where to access these resources, even including emergency funding that may be available at the institutions. 70% of those that filled out this survey felt stressed about their finances, and that was a range from mild stress to very large stress as far as like basic needs needing to be covered. And then about 57% of them worried about having enough money just to pay for school, nothing else but just to say pay for school. So we know that this all of these stressors impact the success of the students while they are here, and them being able to complete their degree and do different things better. So also with part of the survey, 79% of the students did not have a financial education class, formalized education in high school. And I want you to take a moment to think about yourself. Did you have formalized training in your finances while you were in high school or in college, unless you probably were a business major or something? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, but we want students to know that they have access to a place where they can learn some things, even if it wasn't spoken about freely. And then 95% of our students have not had a recurring personal finance course in college. And then half of the students in the survey borrowed less than $30,000, but did not, excuse me, greater than $30,000, but or did not know how much they borrowed. So just not understanding how much debt you have, how much you owe people, what your bill is due, is something that we want to make sure that these students don't go into the world doing. So that's why we think financial education is very important. And the education starts with, of course, the aid that might be needed to come to the university and how to access that. So I'm going to take a moment to talk about financial aid, and we're going to talk about what you need to do in order to get aid to help with the cost if needed to come to NYU. So, what is financial aid? I'm going to back that up a little bit and say, well, what do we need aid for? Financial aid is to cover the cost of attendance, and you see this acronym COA across the board. So the cost of attendance is what it costs to come to the university or college. There may be direct expenses, so those are things that are charged directly. So tuition and fees, which is what is paid to come here, plus room and board if a student is living here. Room and board is living here, and then board is food. There are indirect expenses or things that you need to consider as you are sending your student to school. So that could be books and supplies, because they do need books. They will need a computer, most likely. There will be personal miscellaneous expenses, like some students with glasses. You might need, if they're coming from a warmer climate, they'll need some like warmer weather, colder weather clothing, plus transportation coming to and from, and even transportation within the city. All of these expenses is what makes up the cost to go to school, whatever school that might be. So aid is any assistance that is offered to help the student meet that college expense. So you might hear work study, you might hear scholarships, grants, loans, free money. All of these things that are helping a student go to school is considered aid. So I just want that to be standard as the general definition, that anything that's given to the student is considered aid. Even if it's a loan that has to be repaid, that is still considered aid. So, how do you get this aid? What do you have access to? Besides your application for admissions, there are two financial aid forms that need to be considered in order for students to get financial aid from this institution. The first one, free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA form. You may have heard about this, it's been around for a long time. Keyword in this application is free. So this allows us to review students for federal aid eligibility, and most of the time state aid as well, because your state application is at the end of the FAFSA form. It is for U.S. citizens, permanent residents, and eligible non-citizens that are able to fill out this form. Once you put in the federal tax information on the form, it calculates what's called an expected family contribution, or EFC. This is just a number that's coming up from the government, and I'll show you a calculation about that in a second. And the easy thing about this FAFSA form is corrections can be submitted online after you if you've made an error, and it must be filed annually to be considered for the federal forms of aid, which is grants like the Pell Grant, SCOG Grant, Teach Grant, Work Study, and any student loans as well as parent loans. Versus the other form that's needed that is very important for NYU, which is the CSS Profile or the College Scholarships and Services Profile. It is through the College Board. Your students may have College Board ID already. This is the application that is needed in order to be considered for NYU scholarship consideration. So this is very, very, very important to be considered for NYU scholarship in, consideration. The CSS profile is considered for year one, which means when they're applying based on the application status, whether that's early decision one, early decision two, or regular decision, this profile must be filled out for that application deadline. If parents are separated and or divorced, the non-custodial parents must file their own NCP profile or non-custodial profile. It automatically when the students put in a parental status, it automatically tells them, hey, this is what you need to do, and give us the email of the next parent. There is a current application fees, around $25 for each school. The College Board did announce that they may be shifting this fee structure for the next application year, so this application year is not in effect yet. Corrections must be made directly with each school. So versus the FAFSA, you could do things online. If there was an error, or if there's a larger change in the family structure, corrections can be submitted to each school. So our school is not the only school that uses it. Other institutions use this as well. And deadlines are strictly adhered to. So if you do not remember anything else I say in this presentation, we want you to remember that the deadlines are very important for financial aid, for admissions, for most of the things that even in life you need to pay things on time. And so if you do not submit the CSS profile and or the FAFSA form by our deadlines, the consideration for students diminishes greatly. And we want folks to be aware of that. So make sure your student is aware of our deadlines, and they're all listed on our financial aid, financial education, and even our admissions pages, just based on the application status that you'll have. So the CSS profile is one application that costs money. The free application of FAFSA is the next thing. What happens when you fill those things out? Well, we get those two applications, and remember I talked to you about the cost of attendance, or the COA. We say, okay, NYU costs this amount. We minus that EFC from the FAFSA form, and that gives us a number that considers what's called financial need. What does financial need mean? I know I need money, but what does financial need mean? Well, financial need, is a measure of a family's financial strength to afford higher education. It does not mean like, oh, this is how much I'm paying to go to NYU. Not at all. It just means that, oh, with these factors that we were able to see, income information, how many people are in the household, how many people are in college, things of that nature, the NYU now can see, okay, with that information, what can we contribute to help the student go to school for all 4 years? Again, it does not equate to this is how much you're going to get in scholarship, or this is how much you owe this institution. So I want you to understand this is the standard formula that's used across the board, but every institution can use it slightly differently. So, what might you see in your financial aid package if you do apply? The first thing you might see is some grants from the government. Grants are need-based money that does not need to be repaid. It could be from the government and or the state. So we're a school within New York. So New York State TAP grant is something that you may see if you qualify. It's based on income. The Pell Grant is the governmental grant that you might qualify for, that you will see in the package if it's based on your income as well. The next thing you might see are scholarships. Now, scholarships are based on a combination of merit and or need-based money that does not need to be paid back. So we have academic scholarships, we have need-based scholarships. At other institutions, might have athletic scholarships. They might have scholarships based on talent. We don't have athletic scholarships here, just FYI. But there are also scholarships outside of NYU that students may be applying for. You might have heard of scholarships for left-handed people. You might have heard of scholarships for Coca-Cola or things of that nature, not endorsing anybody in particular. But yes, there are lots of different scholarships out here. And fun fact, the CSS Profile, the College Board, they have a scholarship search service within their profile. So that's something that is important for students to look at. It might involve writing an essay. It might involve showing the transcript. But this is free money that can help with the cost. So that's something we encourage parents and students to get on and to keep looking for throughout their time here. Students' major may change, so they might be into engineering and now they're into business. Okay, this is what they can do to kind of help with these costs. Another thing that you might see in your financial aid offer would be federal work study. Federal work study is an opportunity for students to work on campus or near campus and they earn money. Typically for us, it's the minimum wage is about $15 an hour in order to help with their expenses. Most students use that for their food or their little pocket money. Some people do save it up and pay it towards the tuition, but it's just a thing that students may qualify for that helps them get this work experience as well as money in their pocket. And the last thing you might see, which are federal loans, that there are a couple of types of loans. There's student loans, so things that are in the student's name. It is limited the amount, so as a first year student, they are only allowed $3,500 in a subsidized loan, $2,000 in unsubsidized loan, roughly $5,000 or so. But the larger loan that you might see offered would be a Parent Plus loan, which are loans that parents may be able to take out to help with the student's cost of attendance. There are also private loans out there. People do things such as second mortgages in order to finance the cost of education. These are things that we could talk about as far as like what's the best avenue in order to get maximize, the way to help with the cost of school. But yes, there are loans available that many families do take out a combination of things. All of that together helps students pay for college. You might take out some loans, you might have some savings, you might have a 529 plan, you might get something from your job. All of those goes towards the cost of attending NYU. What remember I talked about some of the things that you need to be aware of. That tuition and fees. Tuition and fees changes every year. So you'll get a cost the first year. They'll tell you it can increase between 2 and 3% every year. Room and board. So living on NYU's, campus system. It changes based on how many people you're living with. The meal plan that they choose might be small, might be large. You know your student best. Books and supplies is important. Transportation is important. Going around campus, maybe to different classes, but also they might do things across and in and of the city. This is something we want them to be able to do as they're studying here, but also transportation to and from where you're living. You might be in California and want them home 2, 3 times a year as a safe. That might be something to do that you have to plan for with these costs. Health insurance. All students are required to have health insurance. It's extremely important in this day and age. They might be covered under your plan with your employer, which is something that you could kind of waive from our system, but these are costs that you have to think about. Technology. So everybody's been zooming for the most part, so they might need a better computer to do the processing work. They might need a headphone microphone setup. They might need certain things for their classes. So these are all costs that are increased and change based on students. And then again, the personal miscellaneous expenses. You know your student best. You know what makes them comfortable. You know what they might need to, be happy and whole as they are here. So for me, that might be something like, oh, I need to buy coffee out every day, or maybe not for them. But you might need to understand this as far as them understand the cost that you need to think about. Some other things that needs to be considered is, as a student is accepted here, we want you to think about understanding the cost of college for the 4 years in attendance, or roughly 4 years. It usually takes students an average 4.5 years to complete. Maybe they're taking summer classes or maybe not. But this cost is not just a one-time thing. It's for the all 4 years. And as I talked about, the tuition and fee increases. If they're trying to study away, in the summer, or go to a different campus at NYU. If they're doing double majors and minors that might need some kind of equipment attached to it. Or additional years of study if needed, if they've changed things completely or they need to take extra time. Those are costs that you might need to think about as you're trying to fund the education, not just the first year, but all of the years here. I just want to give you a little snapshot. And if a student took out all of their student loans as they are here, the ones that we offer to the students, not the parental loan, that is roughly $27,000, and that would be a monthly payment of roughly $261 based on the interest rate. This is last year's information. So this is just something we talk about with students as they are here to understand, like, is this doable for you when you graduate? Is this something that you can build into your overall budget when they graduate, as far as like, okay, I'm now paying rent, I'm responsible for my own Netflix. Is this something that makes sense for me? This might be yes for students. This might be like, this might be a little bit much for me. We help them through, like, okay, what does this mean then as they are here? Does this mean they have to do things differently? Maybe do contribute a little bit more. But this is just an example of some of the things that we talk about with students as well as parents. We look through the loans that you are offered, and we can meet with you to talk about, okay, this is what this means per payment per month for you as your child is in school. Is this working to your overall family finances? We have this great module for students prior to them even coming to NYU in that iGrad platform that I talked about, that helps them compare the different costs of the schools. So, for example, they'll input the different schools that they were accepted to if they were in a regular decision application cycle, and it'll tell them, okay, school number one is costs this amount of money, $35,000, and school number one is giving them grant aid or gift aid and 28,000. It'll actually help them break things out. Some people are visual and need to see, what does this mean for me? How much do I have to pay out of pocket? What is it costing me? This school might cost less, but I have to take out more money to pay them, versus this school might cost more and they're giving me more scholarship money. What is best financial decision for me? Not just financial, other things have to make go into that, like what your goals are, what you're trying to study, location. All of those things go into how to finance and choose your college career. So, what is our commitment? We expect students, once we give them aid, and also once they attend NYU, to do certain things. And this is something we hope that everybody supports. We expect them to have academic integrity, complete their coursework with a minimum of a 2.0 GPA. Some people are like, oh, that's easy. We want to be sure that they're able to complete their coursework. Should be full time coursework and passing a minimum of 76% of that. They need to renew their financial aid forms as we tell them to, which is typically annually, and we want them to uphold student contact, including social media contact and standards that we have. And what does that mean? The commitment from NYU is that your financial aid scholarship will renew at the same level, provided these criteria are met. The scholarship is guaranteed to students, so this amount that we give you is guaranteed for the 4 years, provided that, again, you're meeting all of our coursework here. And if there are changes in circumstances, such certain things like we've during this past year, people did lose jobs. We can review for potential federal aid changes and shifts, but we want you to contact us. We want you to talk to us and let us know what the family circumstance might be. But these are the commitments that we have to the student as they here. We want them to be successful. We want them to understand this is what it costs to come to NYU, and this is what we can support you with, and this is how we can be a partner in this success. So I want you to understand and have some key takeaways from me here. Financial education and literacy is not just for folks who are experiencing financial concerns. It is not just for students who are receiving financial aid. Everybody needs to know about taxes. Everybody needs to know about potentially what debt is, what's coming out of my paycheck. And we want folks to get that teaching and learning where they can, as part of their education as becoming a fully fledged functioning, person out here in society. We have financial education specialists here to ensure student success. So from the application process to the graduation process, we want you to know that they could come in, they could meet with us, they could say hi, we could sit down, we could help work out a budget with them, we could look over different scholarship applications that they're doing just to make sure that it's very, firm and successful. But we want them to know that there is a partner here for their success. And we want to help them set goals and evaluate their choices and commitment to that goal when there's money involved. Your goals may change. Their goals, again, as a freshman, might be to just get here and do well, whereas a senior might be, oh, I'm looking for a great job in a great location that's supporting X, Y, and Z that I want to do. We want them to understand how their choices and their financial sentiment affects these goals. So managing money isn't simply about the dollars and cents that it costs, but it's about the goals, evaluating choices and commitments. And we want you to know that our financial education office, as well as many of the folks here at NYU, are here to help with those goals. So that is what I have for you today. I think there are some questions that are asked. But if there's anything, I think there's the raise your hand feature, or a way that you could drop questions that I could answer at the end of this presentation. Let's go over here. Okay, so there's a couple of questions that I see that I will that need to be answered here. Okay, so the first question is: an international applicant and the parent is an American citizen. Are they eligible for financial aid? Yes, they are eligible for financial aid. The CSS profile, it definitely allows folks that are not U.S. citizens to fill it out. But yes, the FAFSA is for U.S. citizens, permanent residents, and eligible non-citizens. So you should definitely look on the applications and fill out those ones by our deadline. I see the next one for the FAFSA. Are there any documents I can have prepared right now so I'm done with the form as soon as possible? The FAFSA opens up as of October 1st, as well as the CSS profile, by the way. So that's the first day it can be done. And basically, the FAFSA form, it requires federal tax forms, the CSS profile, tax forms, as well as other investment documents if they are available. You could go on FAFSA's website, CSS's website, which we have links to from our website, and they'll tell you the documents that you need that you could then pull together. But it's typically your tax documents from 2 years ago are utilized on both forms. There's another question that says, if a parent is not in the picture financially, do we have to include them on our CSS profile? There's a question that's asked on there as far as if the parents are divorced or separated, it'll ask that information. You indicate that's information. They still are required to contact that person if that contact information is known. If it is not known, you need to contact the institution, so NYU, for example, because there might be a waiver form that you can do where we completely waive that person's information, as far as if they're not inside the picture at all. If they choose not to, that's a whole separate thing. Then they're not around anymore to be able to do certain things. So we want to be able to make sure this application gets done properly. You could definitely speak to one of the financial aid counselors about that, and even our office, just to make sure, like, hey, what your specific circumstance is and how we can get that accurately reflected on the form. Is there a limit to how many scholarships that can be used for tuition costs? So yes, that COA, or that cost of attendance number, which for argument's sake, let's say it costs $70,000. That's the maximum you can get in forms of aid. $70,000. That's how much we think it's going to cost for you to come to NYU, travel to and from, buy books, eat, buy a computer, X, Y, and Z. That's the limit. So that can come from many different places. Some can come from NYU. You could bring some in from like a high school, from doing different things. Yes, there are many different ways that that top number can happen. But the limit is the cost of attendance of the school. That's the limit that you can get at any place. This outside private and pro scholarship received decrease your EFC or just get added to the financial aid package. It works in tandem in the sense that the cost is one thing, 70,000, let's just say, minus the EFC and the FAFSA equals that need. So scholarships fill that gap of need. So typically, if you get 70,000 from Coca-Cola, for example, that means you don't need money from NYU because that's the max that you can get. So this is why whatever you're getting, the first thing we always try to do is, yes, we do everything we can, reduce loans and all of that other case in order for you to keep all of the free and good money first. But if you're getting more money outside than what it costs to go to school here, something has to be reduced in order for it to fit. So you again will be working with our financial aid office to show that, okay, I'm getting this much here, this much here. So conceivably, yes, there are times there are students that don't have to come out of pocket with anything because they've received so much funding from searching for it, from getting it from other resources, and a combination from NYU as well. But that's a way that we work within the financial aid package with understanding the outside costs, the cost of attendance, the aid that students are bringing in, and this changes yearly. Some things they get just as a senior. We want them to keep looking for money because as a senior in high school, I meant because we want them to understand like, oh, these costs are changes every year. They're going to need money every year. We want them to make sure they have the resources every year. Okay. So the question number twofold: is there any community outreach to teach financial literacy beyond the NYU student body? And are there financial classes in the first year students take? Are they mandatory? We don't have financial classes mandatory for students, and we currently are not doing financial outreach outside of the NYU community. But we are an office that we can do one-on-ones with students. We have other campus clubs and organizations, and even some first year programs just have us come in and give students basic lessons and introduce them to these things. And some students are interested, are very piqued with this, and they come back and they visit us and they work with us so that way they can establish a plan. But this is all at no cost. It's all a thing that we're doing so that way students just have more financial capability. What else is there? What else is there? When should I start my CSS profile? The CSS profile is available as of October 1st. Advise folks to log in at that time, look at everything that's needed on that form, gather the documents. It can take, I say, it takes about a half an hour to complete, but again, I have different experience from that. Look at your deadline. So if a student is applying early decision, we want them to know that their deadline is coming up sooner. Get that application in sooner. If their deadline is later on in the year, as far as like regular decision, that does not mean wait to the deadline. Because most of the time everybody's waiting to the deadline, and which means the application is slow. So look at the form, take a weekend, get a latte, look at the form, see what's needed on it, gather those documents, and then take your time and go through the form. It's a good day's worth of progress, and once it's submitted, a peace of mind that will come over you will be great before the deadline. If a student did not apply for financial aid this year, will that affect their eligibility for financial aid in subsequent years? So, financial aid is offered, NYU scholarship is offered the first year as the student is committing to the university. Reason being is when the student is committing, they're typically committing for all 4 years. We assume they're going to, complete their degree and graduate here. So we're committing to support the student at this level for all 4 years. Now, a student can fill out a FAFSA form every year because that's something that's required to get the federal aid, like the loans and some grants from the government every year. That can happen at any time. But the CSS profile is due the first year by the deadlines in order to get scholarship consideration from NYU. So if it's not filled out that first year, then most likely will not be receiving scholarships the remainder of the years here. Now, it doesn't mean that family circumstances haven't changed and or shifted. Sometimes there is a loss of income or a change of circumstance. We can review for additional support, but that support is very limited and is not the support that could be offered in the beginning. So we want families to really take a look and see what their resources are. If a university will pay half of the tuition due to a benefit or so, will I still be eligible to receive financial aid? Yes, that is correct. We Yes, there is financial need still there, but we have to fit it into that overall cost of attendance number. So again, I'm using that 70,000 as a nice even number for me. But if a university like Stanford or something saying we'll pay 50% of that, so that's 35,000, that means that you can get aid for the difference, and that'll help with overall payments out of your pocket. Does our COA vary depending on other things besides room and board and majors and minors? Typically, our cost of attendance is, we show you our tuition cost. You can look on the NYU Burst, our website. It is available there for folks to see what our actual costs are. So the only schools that might have a slightly higher one would be those that are like specialized, like I think like engineering might have a little bit of a different cost, but for the most part, the costs are very very similar. But it's on our NYU website. I think admissions can talk more about that as well. There's a question that asks, has there been any students who got a Fulbright scholarship based on family income and need? Fulbright scholarships is fun to think about, but we do take a look at overall the cost of what families can afford. So when they fill out the FAFSA form, everything is taken into consideration. The CSS profile takes into consideration the state and the cost of living for that state, assets if there are assets, income, income of student, income of parent, if parents are remarried, income of second parent, income of how many folks are in college, age of parent. They take all of those things into consideration. So as far as a full ride, I mean, full is relative to the things that we put in there. Could be grants from the government, could be grants from the state, could be scholarships from us, scholarships from outside places. So that can be full. Also, there could be loans offered, could be work study offered. Students might do the work or they might choose not to work. So those are things that would make up the package in and of itself. Do financial aid packages cover all 4 years, or do we reapply each year? First of all, the the aid that we offer is based on the application for this year. Scholarship you will get offered each year, as I mentioned, if they meet the GPA, full time coursework, things of that nature. Yes, that gets renewed each year. The federal stuff, loans, grants, that has to be reapplied for with that free form, that FAFSA form every year. So it's important to apply the first year, get considered for everything, meet the criteria for the scholarships each year, and then the FAFSA form, renew that every year as you need it. If you have a sibling that fills out the CSS and FAFSA, do you have to fill out one as well, or can you connect it to their returns? Um, if you are the parent, you have a CSS ID and a FAFSA PIN number itself. That's the same PIN that you'll use, but each student needs their own separate personal identification or PIN number for each one of their application. So it's a little bit simple for you in the sense that with your PIN and signature, you'll be able to pull it in for each student, but each student has to have their own separate, identification and application. And it does take into account currently, how many students you do have in school. Both of those forms take that into account. Thank you all for your wonderful questions. I do see that there is another session coming up really quick, so I do want to be responsible with your with the time.